Welcome everyone. We are going to discuss perspective today and one of our upcoming assignments. Linear perspective is a form of perspective in drawing and painting in which parallel lines are represented as converging so as to give the illusion of depth and distance. Now this is something that naturally happens, and let's go ahead and take a look at some train tracks here. So if you are looking or taking a photograph and you stand in front of a road, for example, or in this case, train tracks, you can see that there are parallel lines and they start to create this converging form of like a point in the center, almost like a cone shape. It looks like these lines are going to come together, but in reality, as we continue to walk, we know that they will never actually converge. This is called one-point perspective. Here's another example of one-point perspective. Now this is somebody who's taking the photograph in the center of the aisleway. Now if you have flown or if you looked at images of flying, you can see inside of an aircraft that it looks like the overhead bins, the aisleway, and the seats are all going into one point towards the way back area here. However, we know that that is not the case. Another form of one-point perspective. So this is us walking down, let's say, for example, a hallway. Now the photographer is at an angle here. They're not in the dead center like the other images we just viewed. However, we can see from the ceiling and from the tile flooring that, again, it looks like these lines converge. So this is something that naturally happens in reality. And as artists, we're working on a flat surface. So we are trying to create depth and distance. There's a number of different points of perspective. Some common ones are 1 point like we see here. There's 2 point and there's 3 point. There's also more points. And in reality, when you are depicting, drawing, painting a piece, you may use several different points at one time. Let's go ahead and look at 1 point. So here is a cube on the bottom at ground level. Here's one at eye level and then one above eye level. Now there is a straight line that typically is drawn, and that's called the horizon line, or AKA eye level. The vanishing point is a little dot here in the center. So we have the cube looking down, but look at the sides here. We can see that it's not straight. It actually has a diagonal to it. And same thing on these other portions here as well. Here's another illustration, digital illustration of, again, going through a hallway. We have the doors, the windows, all going in this vanishing point, 1 point perspective. So eye level again, horizon line, and vanishing point. Now let's look at a table in reality. This looks like we are looking down at a table, typically the view that we would see in reality. Notice that we have the edges at a diagonal, and we're standing again in the center. So there's going to be a vanishing point here towards the top. And here's an illustration of that. So we have the vanishing point, the horizon line, so this would be our eye level, and then we have the lines converging, or looks like they should be converging, but however, we know that they never really converge. So even we have the bottom legs and the sides, they still follow that same 1 point. Here's a quick example looking at Leonardo da Vinci, The Last Supper, extremely famous piece. This is in the 1400s, and we have Christ in the center. Also, we have the background, and we have this window here. This is the vanishing point of 1 point perspective. Now we have his other disciples, the 12, and this is actually a really interesting scene right now. Da Vinci decided to pick the moment when Christ says, "One of you will betray me." So you have this theatrical event happening as everyone is in movement, and you can see that they are questioning themselves, questioning others, not understanding what he's saying, asking, "Will it be me?" Just all of this different conversation. Really interesting to study the piece, and I recommend to study it more in advance. So here is our vanishing point. Here's Raphael, School of the Athens. This is 1500s. And where do you guys think the vanishing point is? If you remove the people and look just at the architecture, we can see the marble or the indentions here, this decorative pattern. You can also see the columns. And it looks like it's in the center. So with the people removed, you can see that again, Raphael is playing with perspective to give a sense of a long depth. Again, here it is again. Here's another illustration of using 1-point perspective at the bird's eye level. So here is the vanishing point. The horizon line would be straight here, and now these are just elongated, rectangular or square, you could say, shapes. Here's another piece of 1-point perspective in the center. Let's talk about 2-point. 2-point perspective now is going to have 2 vanishing points. So we have 1, 2, and now we still have cubes on the upper level, horizon line, and looking down. So for example, here is a box. If we wanted to depict a box and we're walking up into it, we're looking down, we can see the top of it here, but we also see the side now. So if we go back to 1-point perspective, we didn't see the sides. We only seen one, or we seen more of the side edges from the top view or from the bottom view. So 2-point perspective will give a different viewpoint. Okay. So this will look a little different. Here is the horizon line, and here is 1 point here. Now, in reality, off of this PowerPoint presentation, if we continue on and make this box really small to kind of fit it in this scene, then we would have the other horizon line eventually meet. Right now, we do see one side though. So we have a straightened line, and then we have these diagonals on either side. Let's go ahead and look at a 2-point perspective table. Now we noticed we've seen a table before, we were looking head on at it. Now we're actually standing at the corner of the table. So we have these diagonals all over the place. There's really no straight line. Remember, at the edges here, the table legs will follow, and that's going to help make the proper perspective. So I know these lines go all over the place. This might look slightly confusing, but here's the horizon line, and then we have the different lines going to the vanishing point. So if they're horizontal, or you could say if they're at the side view, they're going to go to a vanishing point. And if we go back here again, so the way we make a cube, and we'll talk about this in our videos that you will see on how to create 2-point perspective, but you have one line you start with, and then either side of the vanishing point, they will go to the angle, and then you close off the boxes. Again, there'll be other videos on how to do this. Speaking of other videos, we will be having a video on 2-point perspective city. Here's an example of 2-point perspective city, which will be, again, what we'll be working on. Here's 2 points, and here is that horizon line. If you notice, all of the tops have angles to them and the bottoms because they're following one of the vanishing points. 3-point perspective. So 3-point perspective is like 2-point. We both have a horizon line, 2 vanishing points, but we have a third. The third can be on the bottom or at the top, and this will give more of a dramatic diagonal to the cube. Here's another example of working with 3-point. This is a chair. Here's an example of working with 3-point, and this is in a photograph. You can see that we have this distortion happening of this building, so it's starting to become like a cone shape. And here is an illustration of working with 3-point perspective. So the point is on the top in this illustration. Here's the opposite example of where the point is at the bottom. So you have extreme foreshortening here on the bottom to show that it's very, very high. And we as the viewer are closer up here. Here is the vanishing point again, horizon line, 2 vanishing points. And we can see the top, almost like you could say comic book or superhero. We are flying. We are looking above this space. In reality, so when you look or depict a home, let's say a building, 2-story building, we might want to just draw it straight. But we need to remember, if you guys see these edges here, that it actually is going to have a perspective, so it increases, or it actually goes more at a diagonal on the edges. And you can see the negative space here. These red lines are straight. Here's another example, and this is actually 2-point. So if we look at a diagonal, here we're kind of at the corner of this. This is a cube again, just more, of course, ornate because it is a building. And here's an example. Now I put the image way off the edge of the right-hand side just to show how extreme this vanishing point is. It goes beyond the image here that we have. So in reality, you guys, I did not know how to do this. And so when I was working with perspective artwork, I would actually put the vanishing points on my sheet of paper. But again, typically the vanishing points go beyond the sheet of paper. So if you're interested in working with perspective art, for example, here's a drawing board. Here's a sheet of paper, let's say, and this is the artwork. And then here's the art piece itself of this house. Now, again, let's say that I have vanishing points and I actually draw on my drawing board or a sheet of paper over it, and then I have 2 vanishing points on either edge. So we still have this natural end that it doesn't become like a point. The vanishing point goes beyond the picture plane, goes off the drawing board. That makes it look more naturalistic. Okay, so walking down an aisleway. So typically in my drawing classes, we go to the library and we draw the different bookshelves. We sit down and we just look at all the different angles that are accumulating, and we go outside and draw the buildings just to figure out how perspective works in an actual perspective of working from real life. So you can tell the photographer is standing more towards the edge here. So now we have a different perspective. However, all the bookshelves, really neat to see that, converge to one vanishing point. If we were to step back, we can see that these columns here, or the edge of the bookshelves, they have a different vanishing point, 1-point perspective. And then we have the bookshelves themselves in another perspective. And here's that same illustration just for you to see from way off the picture plane is where the line converges actually. But we can see that it doesn't in the photo. In reality, we will have many different perspectives and distortions when we're drawing from real life, especially in architecture and anything with an edge to it. So to show you some examples of student perspectives working with a city, now I will have step-by-step instructions in a video, and you're welcome to copy me exactly. However, if you want to do something different, make it your own, put different personality in it, you're more than welcome to. Just follow the criteria of having at least the certain amount of buildings that are needed, and that will be again in the actual module of the instructions. Here's another example. So playing around with titles, with signage, with windows and doors, with sidewalks, and with plant life. Rulers are great to use for this, and again we have the 2 points and we have that horizon line. So there's also working with roads, crosswalks. And again, really making it your own, giving personality to it. Please do what you want to, enjoy the process. In this case, this artist decided to add the sun just to show visual reference of where the values are. So you're welcome to shade this and actually add value to it to give more dimension. But let me know as always if you have any questions. I'm here for you. Thank you so much, everyone.